And it struck me as the funniest thing I had ever come across, that everything that I was so studiously trying to figure out in the world was all already fully formed within me. Something took perfect care of me the whole time, 24/7, day and night. Even if I say, I hate my life loves me unconditionally.
Welcome to the Time Has Come podcast. My name is Graham Wardle, and today I am joined by a man whose work has touched the lives and health of millions of people around the world. Udo Erasmus is a pioneer in the field of health and nutrition, and he is the founder of Udo's Choice. Have you ever seen Udo's Oil 369, that blend of omega oils in your health food store or your grocery store? That's him. So we're gonna talk about his product, his latest book, Your Body Needs an Oil Change. But honestly, I'd say 90% of our conversation was talking about life, his experiences, his journeys, surviving World War II as a young little boy. He's 83 now. And then getting poisoned, and then that was what led him on this journey of health and discovering what's really going on beneath the surface. What does your body actually need? And also, what is spirituality? What is faith? What is peace? And how do these things all connect in this moment, here and now? It was such a wonderful conversation. I'm gonna go on a hike right now and listen to it along with you guys. And I wanna invite you too, if you can get outside, get some oxygen, get some fresh air, and just listen to this wonderful conversation. The time has come to welcome Udo Erasmus to the show. Udo Erasmus, thank you so much for being on the Time Has Come podcast. It is so good to see you. I think you're from Canada. Am I correct?
Well, I was born in Poland.
You were born in Poland, okay.
When it was Germany during the Second World War. My parents were from Latvia and Estonia, and I'm German-Swedish by blood.
Ah, okay. But you have a roots in Canada? There's some sort of Canadian connection?
We left Germany in 1952 when I was 10, and we moved to Canada. My father liked the North Country because it was like Latvia. And he moved to Canada just because he liked the North. And then he moved from Vancouver 500 miles north because that's really like Latvia.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
And
great.
He loved living in nature with birch trees and aspens and evergreens.
Beautiful. Well, that's where I grew up, in Vancouver, in New Westminster. So we have that common. I'm in Australia right now, but I think we have that in common. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I hear you. You're hanging from the planet instead of standing on it, eh?
Yeah, exactly. But that's super cool. I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. Now we have so much to talk about in this podcast episode.
Oh yeah, we got at least 5 hours.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really fun. I want to start though with your latest book. Your Body Needs an Oil Change. I want to give people a little insight into that. So let's say, Udo, we were sitting down for lunch, we were having a great conversation, and you looked at me and you said, Graham, I think your body needs an oil change. What would be the problems with my health, or what would I be experiencing that would make you say that?
Very simply, that if you were to eat the way nature says every creature should eat, which is fresh, whole, raw, organic, local, mostly in season, and for human beings, probably mostly plant-based, you would be getting, and the focus on fresh means that all the molecules in that food are the way nature made it. They haven't been embellished, they haven't been changed, they haven't gone rotten, they haven't gone oxidized, right? And that would be the best way for you to eat if you want a body that works optimally well. Now, in all of the molecules in that food, there are 2 that are super sensitive to damage by light, by oxygen, by heat. They're called omega-6 and omega-3 essential fatty acids. And omega-3 is 5 times more easily damaged than omega-6. And 99% of the population does not get enough omega-3s for optimum health. So when I say your body needs an oil change, I know what kind of oils you're using. They're on all the shelves in plastic bottles. The plastic leaches into the oil. They have pesticides in them because they're not organic. They have been treated with sodium hydroxide, phosphoric acid, then bleached with bleaching clays, and then heated to frying temperature to try to clean up the rancidity that comes from the processing. And then you use those oils for frying your foods. And when you do that, like I learned this all the hard way. I got poisoned by pesticides. And I was looking for self-help because a doctor told me we don't have anything for pesticide poisoning. So I'm on my own. I have biochemistry, genetics background. So let me try and figure it out. And I found out all of this stuff about oils in trying to get healthy after I got poisoned by pesticides. Mm. And I found out, and I studied biochemistry and we studied fats and oils. Nobody ever told me all that stuff, how much damage done. So the question I asked when I found that out, it's like 1% damage, maybe half to 1% damage of the oils. Doesn't sound like a lot, still 99% good. But how many molecules are in that oil that are damaged? So I figured out how many, if you had a tablespoon of an oil that was 1% damaged by the processing. And by the way, if you fry it, that might be 5% damage, maybe even 10%, depending on how you do your frying, right? But it's 1% damage before you put it in the frying pan. How many damaged molecules are going to be in that tablespoon? And I want you to guess, because you don't have a basis for making the guess probably.
No, I have done my research on you, and I know the number is really big, but I can't even remember what it is. It's something beyond a number that I wouldn't even know.
Anyway, so most people, when they guess at least 1 billion times too low. And what that means is that people are doing something to themselves that's 1 billion times or more bad for them than they think they're doing. And when I realized so the number is 60 quintillion damaged molecules.
Yeah, there it is.
That's a six followed by 19 zeros. 19 zeros. So you're talking 1,000, 1 million, 1 billion, 1 trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, 60 quintillion, 19 zeros, right? And that's like more than 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells in 1 tablespoon. Before you fry it, and not counting the plastics and not counting the pesticides in it.
Wow.
And you think that if you have 1 million damaged molecule that you give every cell in every tablespoon, because most people use 2 to 4 tablespoons, you think that's not going to have a bad effect on it if those molecules are not natural, they never existed in nature, and life never made a way to break them down. So then they get you inflammation, because the inflammation comes from the immune system trying to corral them and block them and lower circulation so they can keep them in place and hammer them. But they can't fix them. They can't fix them because the body doesn't have anything to do that, to wreck them. So then they pile up in your body. And what if you do that for 30 years? Now you got to multiply that number, 60 quintillion. If it's only 1 tablespoon, you got to multiply that by 11,000. So now you're 6 you're probably into the septillion. If you fried it, you got to multiply it by 3 to 6 times. If you do 2 to 4 tablespoons, you got to multiply it by 2 to 4. So you get an enormous number of damaged molecules in your body just from using the oils the way industry makes them, even before you wreck them in your frying pan. And so when I found that out, I said, you know what? We should be making oils with health in mind rather than with shelf life like the industry does. And that means you have to make a really tight system, like a system that presses, filters, settles, fills. That system has to be really tight to exclude all light, all oxygen, and keep the temperature really low in order not to damage the molecules. And that's what we then did. Figured out the way to do that. I grew up on a farm. It's not hard to figure out when you know what the issue is, right? And so then we developed a method for making oils with health in mind. Out of that came flaxseed oil, because that's the richest source of omega-3s that's easily available and affordable. And then it ends up being an unbalanced oil. So we made a blend where the omega-3 and 6 are properly balanced because they compete in the body. And if you get too much of one, it crowds out the other, then you become deficient in that one. If you get too much of the other, it crowds out the one, then you become deficient in that one. And we wanted, they both have really important functions. And they use the same system to get converted into those different derivatives. with those important hormone-like regulating functions. So you got to make sure you get the ratio between them right so that both of them can do their job in the body. That's the short answer of why your body needs an oil change.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for that. Now, for the symptoms and conditions that people are experiencing, let's say, and this would be what they need, an oil change, is obviously you said inflammation. I'm thinking maybe hormone regulation or balancing hormones. What other conditions or symptoms do people have that having an oil change would really help them with?
You could almost say everything.
Everything. So this is a whole body.
Because they have so many important functions in every cell in the body. You know, your hormones won't work as well, your receptors won't work as well, your cell membranes won't work as well, you won't get as much energy, you will screw up your mitochondria that are your energy production factories. And omega-3s, when they're made with health in mind, are actually the highest energy fuel of all of our molecules, of all of our nutritional molecules. You know, super important for pregnancy and brain development and mother's health. You get inflammatory conditions. There's like 400 of them, one for every tissue in the body. And you get inflammation from damaged molecules. And why? Because the immune system is trying to get rid of them, but can't.
Yes.
So you get chronic inflammation in its effort to try and get rid of them.
Wow.
And so fundamentally, what I say to people is, look, the single worst thing that causes the most problem in nutrition is damaged oils. So you're going to get more health problems from damaged oils than any other part of nutrition. And you're going to get more benefits from getting the oil change your body needs to oils made and used with health in mind than any other part of nutrition.
Before we go any further, I want to give people a picture of who you are, where you started, because you have a wonderful story. We'll come back to the health element and the oils and stuff.
This is who I am.
Yes, but I've heard a great story about you surviving World War II as a young child.
That's a bigger story.
Yeah, and I thought that was just so fascinating. So whenever you would like to share that, I would love to hear it, and from the audience as well, to know where you came from and how you got to where you are today. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm an old guy. 83 in May, right? And I was born in 1942 in Poland when it was part of Germany. My parents were from Latvia and Estonia. By blood, I'm German and Swedish, more German than Swedish. And my father had a farm in Latvia. And in 1938, Hitler and Stalin signed a non-aggression pact. So they said, we're not going to attack each other. And then, of course, they broke it a few years later, but that's a whole other story. And as part of the deal for signing that pact, Latvia went to the Soviet Union and part of Poland went to Germany. But there was nobody from Latvia or Poland at the meeting. They just took it because they were big, because they could. And my father loved the Russians because he said the Russians are they're feeling people. They're rich in feeling. And I think if you read Dostoevsky and some of the other Russian classics, you get that feeling. But he hated communism because they took everything away from everybody. Everything got state-owned, right? And so he was given a farm in Poland, and the Polish farmer became his farmhand on his own farm. And I was born on that stolen farm, and the farmer and my dad, obviously there was some tension there, right? What do you mean? You sure. Own my farm and I'm going to work for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the middle finger comes out, you know, seriously, right? And so my father said, look, we live in crazy times. Let's just run the farm the way the farm could best be run. And when all of this stuff shakes out, then we'll sort it out. And they became really good friends and they helped us get out. And when the war ended, I was 2.5. My father was in a prisoner of war camp in Alabama. My mother and a lot of people from that area, they were in horse-drawn hay wagons, mothers with young children, on dirt roads with no military presence. And they were getting the hell out of Poland into Germany, being chased by the communists in tanks and trucks. But the part that doesn't get any airtime is, and they were being shot at by air artillery by the Allies, the good guys.
Why would they shoot?
They used this as target practice.
Oh my gosh.
And so my mother had 6 kids with her, 6 and younger. And she decided it was safer to get off the road and walk through the snow-covered fields than to be on the road, because they were always just shooting at the roads. So she had to leave 4 kids behind because she couldn't handle 6 kids. And so I got left behind at a farmer's place. He took me to Berlin, where we were supposedly had relatives. They had already fled. So I ended up in an orphanage. And then she made it out to Germany, and my mother's sister found out what happened. So she went back behind enemy lines, fished us out, and then basically reunited us with the family. And on the way out, we missed the last boat. I think we had to go north and then go through Denmark or someplace, and missed the last boat. And the boat pulled off. We were too late, and it blew up in the harbor. So they sent another boat and got us out. So
wow.
I don't remember a lot of that. I just remember the biggest thing was I remember feeling hungry, but the biggest thing was I never felt safe. And I never knew what I could trust, because every day there was a new story, because there was so much chaos. And you're just a little kid. I'd just been diaper trained, right? Toilet trained, right? And, so you really don't know the lay of the world. And every day you get a different story. It's got to be a little confusing. So I'm a born scientist. Scientists like to figure out how things work, because when you know how things work, that gives you predictability and that gives you security. And so I was always banging things together and trying to figure out how things were. I wrecked a lot of shit when I was a kid. Because it's easier to break it down than to put it back together, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because I wasn't trying to figure out how to take it apart, put it together. I was just trying to figure out how things worked, right?
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of time by myself, just looking at things and looking at, how things work. And then when it came to, then when I was 6 years old, I listened to adults argue in Germany, after the war. Everybody was frustrated, obviously, right? And they would argue about really trivial things. To me, as a 6-year-old, they seemed really trivial, but they so get intense about it, get into it. And it always made me uneasy, because I was really shy, right? And one day when I was watching another one of these arguments, this thought came to me, man, there must be a way that people can live in harmony. And this little cocky voice said, and I'm going to find out how. 6 years old, don't know how complicated everything is, right? I'm going to find out how. But that's been my driver all my life. And obviously, my parents believed in education, so went to school. When I went to university, guess what I went into?
Biology?
Science.
Science, yeah.
Science, right? Know things, right? Yeah. I loved literature, but between literature, which is artistic and, beautiful stuff, some of it, I decided science was really where I wanted to put my effort. So I started in physics, chemistry, math, and they became like very dry to me because it was all theoretical. And I'm a farm boy. I'm a kid, right? I'm watching spiders in the grass. And so then I switched to biology. And then my goal there is talking about asking questions. My goal was, what is life? Biology means study of life, right? So I went to biology because I wanted to know what life is. And I thought at some point we would have a beaker half filled with something liquid and shining, and we could, wow, there's life, right? Never got the beaker. And I didn't realize until really just maybe 10 years ago, we never studied life in biology. You do not study life in biology. You study form and function, but you don't study life. When you do biochemistry, the chemistry of life, you don't study energy. You don't study life. in chemistry. You study the molecules on the bonds of which energy is stored and then released, right? It's called ATP, right? But you never study the energy itself.
Why is that? Why does the education system shy away from that?
You got 80 years. I'll explain it all to you. No, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why briefly. We are materialists, not vitalists. There was always this, the materialists, they believed in all the physical things. And the vitalists say, no, there's some kind of an élan vital, which means a life force, an energy, a power. And of course, you look at the world, everything runs on power, right? That's why energy is such a big issue. That's why, whether it's fossil fuel or it's atomic radioactive energy or wind or solar or whatever, right? Energy drives everything. Mm-hmm. So material without energy is dead. Life is energy. In fact, that energy comes from the sun. Sun's the power source, right? And it's filtered through 93 million miles of space. Then it's filtered through the atmosphere. Then it's filtered through plants. And the fraction that remains activates electrons in plants that then form bonds between atoms that make molecules. And that solar energy fraction is stored in those bonds, right? Then you eat them, and in your cells, those bonds get broken. That energy is released, and now we call it life. So you're actually a solar energy gadget.
Oh,
so
whoa.
So is every other human being. So is every animal. So is every plant, and so is every microbe. All run by sunlight energy.
What about those beings at the bottom of the ocean that don't get any light? Like those crazy fish monsters at the bottom of the ocean.
Well, if you take, let's say you take human wastes, okay? Because we eat them, there are still molecules in there, and there's still energy stored in the bonds in those molecules. So they fall to the at the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's just a lower form of it.
No, and then something eats it, and then digests it and breaks the bond and gets the energy.
I see,
right?
I see.
Like you can't just run out naked in the sun, and twirl 16 times and say, okay,
I've eaten for the day.
I got all the energy I need for today, right? Naked, you have to do that naked, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
No, because you're getting a lot of the sunlight energy that is your life energy. You're getting a lot of that from the storage of it in the bonds between the atoms in the molecules you eat. Carb molecules, fat molecules. You can even break down protein molecules for energy, right? But the fuel that's mostly for, like if you eat carbohydrates, what happens is they end up turning into carbon dioxide, which you breathe out, and water, which you pee out, and energy, which runs your body, right? Now, you may also have some minerals and vitamins and in there and some fatty acids, right? But the carbohydrate molecule itself is just for fuel. Fats have some structural functions as well as energy functions. Fuel, right? And again, most of when you metabolize a fat, you end up with carbon dioxide that you breathe out and water that you pee out and energy that flows through your body as life energy, weighing nothing and running absolutely everything on every level, from electrons to atoms to molecules to macromolecules to organelles to cells to tissues to glands to organs to the whole system. And beyond you to the rest of humanity, and beyond the rest of humanity to the rest of nature. All run on sunlight. Now, I told you we never got the beaker. And at one point, I was in first year in medicine. I did 1 year medicine, but that's a whole story, other story. First year biological sciences, zoology was actually where I focused. I said to my lab partner, we should really study ourselves. because in ourselves, we have form and function and life all together. And we don't have to kill ourselves to get to know it. See, because in biology, we started with a living organism. By the time we were done, the organism was dead. And we found out that if you put an electric current on a nerve, it'll contract a muscle, and we could make a tracing on a drum to show it. But we never got a handle on the energy. We never got a handle on the life. So we actually were destructive to life in studying life, so supposedly, right? And then that didn't, and then I got tired of biology. I was looking for something, and that came maybe out of the war. I was 17. My heart always ached from the time I was 17, and I couldn't shake it. And there was nothing wrong with me physically, just something, right? Every day. And it probably happened before that, but I remember that it was there all the time for 13 years. And so I was always there was something missing in my life, or there was something I had lost in my life. That's what it felt like. And it ached, right? And I couldn't find anything. We tend to, when we feel heartache, we tend to like to distract ourselves. I couldn't find any distractions that I thought might actually make my heartache go away. So I was bare. It was kind of naked in that arena, right? And so I got into psychology. Psychology means study of soul. So I said, okay, well, I'm talking about bio as life, soul, that sounds good. There's some things that seems like that might be important to know. I want to know that.
Yeah.
So I studied psychology. Well, we didn't study soul in psychology. We studied thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. Then I went to medicine. I wanted to know what health is. I'm always looking for the good stuff, right? Because I came out of a war, I'm always looking for the good stuff. Yeah, I want that. That's enough. I've had enough of that. Yeah. I want something good, right? And so I'm studied medicine because it's called healthcare. So it's like study of health. Okay. So we were only studying disease in first year medicine. And about maybe 4 months in, I went and talked to the dean. I said, I came here to study health. What is health? He said, we don't know. We're working on it. That was probably the most disappointing answer I ever got from a professional in my life. You don't know what health is? I came here to study health, and you don't know what health is? What the hell am I doing here? Right? And then there was a second thing happened. We were told in they called it preclinical sessions. And we were told that in preclinical sessions, we were told that a doctor should always sound as though he knows what's going on, even when he doesn't. And that ended my medical career. Because on the farm where I grew up, we call that lying.
Yeah.
They called it PR. Experts are supposed to have answers. So if you don't have an answer, make one up. And the people you're talking to are obviously too stupid to figure it out, that you're just making shit up, right? So I left medicine, went back into biochemistry and genetics, right? And then left that as well, because there was still something missing. Now, by this time, it's 1968. And you're too young to know, but in 1968, there was a lot of hippie stuff going on and psychedelics.
Okay.
And nobody in science was using psychedelics, but everybody in the arts faculties was doing psychedelics. So I said to a guy one day, because I was curious, so like again, it's like I was checking things out, right?
Yeah.
I said to him, so what's LSD like? And he looked at me just like with this really kind look in his eyes. And he said, if you haven't done it, I can't explain it to you. And if you have done it, I don't need to explain it to you. Then I go away and I say, what kind of an answer is that? Right? So it turned out that I did an LSD trip. It was Sandoz LSD from the pharmaceutical company in Switzerland that created that. And they had sent samples around, and I was lucky enough to get a hold of one of those samples. And I took 60 micrograms of LSD.
Is that a lot?
With two friends. The very small dose.
Very small dose, okay.
Yeah, the heroic dose is 600 micrograms.
Okay, good.
And I'm doing 60.
So you had a nice gentle experience.
No.
No, okay, good.
No,
All right. It was still a lot.
The door got blown off my war baby personality.
Oh, wow.
So what happened is I went with two guys, and they just decided to sit with me. So I took the LSD, they didn't. And I took the LSD, and one of them turned into an angel in my perception. The other one turned into a devil. I don't know where that all came from, right? And I was lying on the floor, and we were listening to Mozart music. And you know how Mozart music is? It's like very light and, yeah, tripping of the light, fantastic, sometimes say, right? And I'm laughing to the music. So you go, ha, 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 and then you go, ha, 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 like that, right? And the tears are running down my cheeks. And it struck me as the funniest thing I had ever come across, that everything that I was so studiously trying to figure out in the world was all already fully formed within me. That struck me. And it's a joke, like there's a joke, right? God, God gets tired of people complaining, because people are always complaining, the human race. We're always complaining about something. So he has a meeting and he talks to all his advisors, says, I want to get out of these people always complaining. I need to hide. Where can I hide? So one guy says, oh, just on top of Mount Everest. Go on top of Mount Everest and you'll be safe. You'll be cool. And this little kid who everybody laughs at says, no. If you go on Mount Everest, they'll find you. They'll climb Mount Everest and they'll find you. So then they say, well, it's okay. So any other ideas? So another guy says, well, bottom of the ocean, in the Mariana Trench, the deepest place in the ocean. So the little kid pipes up again. And he says, no, they're gonna fight, get one of those things that you can go in that has a flashlight on the front of it.
Yeah, the little submarines.
They'll find you there, little submarine, yeah. So he says, okay. So then they start getting mad at this kid, and they say, well, if you're so smart, then why don't you come up with something? You think you don't know, everything else doesn't work, we're coming up with. So why don't you come up with something? He says, yeah, God, actually, hide in the heart of human beings because they're never going to look there. Right? And in a way, it's very close to the story of humanity, right? So anyway, that was kind of like the door opener for me. And literally, I realized, oh my God, I have 1,000 options of how I want to live. And I never saw that before because I was just following the line and not thinking about it, just doing what it was in front of me. Oh my God, I've got 1,000 options of how I want to live my life.
Did that finally answer your heartache from 17 that you said you were experiencing? Or no, it didn't. Okay.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
This is all in search for truth, heartache, yeah. But it was a start, right? And then I did a few other LSD and psychedelic experiences. And I had mostly almost like scriptural experiences, like crucifixions and the city made of light. And I don't know where that came from because we grew up, we were nominally Lutheran, but my parents weren't into religion. For them, the place to find God was in nature. They didn't trust the church. Hitler had made a pact with, Hitler had made a pact with the then Pope that the Pope would not out him. And so I say, okay, well, where was the church? Where was Jesus for the little children, right? And of course, it's not Jesus, it's like the institution. So there's always an issue with institutions. They start with a purpose, and then they become just self-sustaining, and eventually they become corrupt, and they not only sustain, but they milk the population for the enrichment of a few, right? That's a tendency in governments, it's a tendency in institutions.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, I left university and I did some of the psychedelics, and this was still there. And so then after 2 years, I said, okay, I've done enough psychedelics. I want to take 2 years and not do any psychedelics because they're hard on your body if you do a lot of them. So I want my body, I just get one body, I need to take care of it. I'm going to take 2 years to recover before I do any more of those, if I'm going to do any. Well, what to do in the time? Well, then I started thinking, okay, where else do I look? And one of the things that came to me is like, I see things getting worse in the world, but I can't see anywhere in the world where there's a renewing principle. So my question is, well, I see things getting worse. Well, how do things get better? And I said, no, not so different from, there must be a way that people can live in harmony, right? But I called it the renewing principle. Where's the renewing principle? I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere, right? And then I was looking for a model. Who do I want to be, right? And my parents were not my models. They were pretty burned out by the war. And, I think only 25% of the children in the world see their parents as their models, right? And so then what do? Well, you look for somewhere, who would I like to be like? My kid, at one point, my kid wanted to be like Arnold, right? Because he got into body culture and, so he looked up to it, right? And so when I looked around, I said, well, not my parents, none of the people that I know are how I want to be. And then looking around, the only one I could come up with was Jesus. But in a really different way, not a religious way. It's like, okay, here's this guy. He lived 2,000 years ago. They're still talking about him. My grandfather died, hasn't been dead for 50 years. Nobody remembers him. I don't even know his name. He died before I was born, but so did Jesus, right? But nobody knows him, and they're still talking about this Jesus guy. So what's the difference? And then I got the red letter edition of the Bible. You know what that is?
Where all the words Jesus spoke are in red and everything else is in black.
It's a King James version, and everything Jesus says is in red. Everything else in that Bible is in black ink, right? Why that? Because I'm 2,000 years late to the party.
You want to catch up.
Yeah, and I want to get focused on as much as I can from his expressions. What was he? Right? What was his nature? And I got to a point, so I started reading, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and then it goes on, and then it says, and Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us full of grace and truth. And it's like poetry, like the hair goes up on the back of my head, even now when I say it, right? Every time I say it, right? And I say, okay, that's poetry. Well, you got to be feeling something to write poetry. What was John? What was his experience that inspired that poetry? I want to have that experience. I don't know how that's going to happen, but that's what I want, right? And then a couple of weeks later, I said, wait, I was on the letter edition with Jesus. Why do I want to be like John? So I changed my question, and the question was, what did Jesus experience? What did he feel that made him live like he did, talk like he did, and do what he did?
Good question. I like that.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
And there was nothing I had ever seen that said, I can't ask that question.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Well, so the red letter edition was a big part of it. And then I put things he said to the test. We were told not to do that. Because if I put them to the test and what he said wasn't true, then it was going to turn out badly for me. But I actually put myself on the line for it. I had some fabulous, beautiful, magical experiences. And so I'm doing this, and then this group of Christians came up the coast from California to Vancouver. They called themselves the Jesus People's Army.
Okay.
That should have been a warning to me because army was not a good word in my lexicon as a war baby.
Oh, right.
I missed the cue. I completely got into my head. They're all doing what I'm doing. They're all trying to figure it out. We're all going to get together as fellow seekers.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to tell our stories, take turns telling our stories. Maybe one to the whole group, one to the whole group, another one to the whole group. That's what I pictured it. And we're all going to leave the evening enriched because I've had some cool experiences. They must have all had some cool experiences. So I went to their coffee house. They invited people. And I went in, I sat down with this in mind. And this guy immediately swooped in next to me. That should have been my second warning, but I missed that cue too. And I didn't introduce myself. I just looked him in the eyes and I said, it must be possible to see God and live. And I thought that would be the beginning of a deep conversation about a really important topic, wherever that's going to go, right? Because we were told as kids, God loves you unconditionally, keeps you alive when you're sleeping. He makes the whole world for you to live in. He makes all the food you eat, takes care of everything in your body. But if you look at him, he kills you. And
that's in the Bible?
No, that's what we were told.
Oh, that's what you were told. Okay.
By religious people.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and that was in Europe. And as maybe, I don't know, I don't think anybody says it these days. But
yeah.
I remember growing up with that. It's like,
they would say that.
They also said there are certain questions you're not supposed to ask.
Oh.
But they wouldn't tell us what those questions were because knowing me, if they'd have told us what the questions were, I would have asked them.
All right. All right. So you're sitting beside this guy and
So I thought this was going to be the beginning of a beautiful conversation. And he jumped out of his chair and jumped around the room with his arms flailing around his head, screaming at the top of his lungs, "You're from the devil! You're from the Antichrist! Get out!" Okay, and then I was like, okay. So I slunk out of there and I'm standing on the sidewalk in the dark and I'm saying, I haven't seen God. Maybe that is one of those questions I'm not supposed to ask. And I got really confused.
How old were you?
27.
27, okay.
So 27, got really confused, really desperate. And desperation is a good thing when it makes you sincere. And it did. And so I was desperate and I really want to know. And so I didn't know how is it going to happen? I know what I want, but I don't know how to, it's like, okay. So I hitchhiked to a beach to spend the weekend there to clear my head, because that's how I used to clear my head in those days. Out in nature, the pace is slower and so I was on this beach, completely deserted, nothing but me and the logs.
In British Columbia?
In British Columbia, yeah. on West Coast, Vancouver Island.
Oh, beautiful.
It's called Long Beach, south of Tofino.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, great.
Yeah. And somebody had draped plastic over some logs and made a little dwelling.
Okay.
And you couldn't walk into it, but you could crawl in it and there's room to sleep. And I said, okay, there's my hotel for the weekend, right? And so I crawled in, went to sleep, and in the middle of the night, I woke bolt upright from dead asleep. And there was this being made of light, standing on a cloud of light, no words, no labels, but this being embodied a message. That's the only way I can describe that experience. And I could put words to the message. And, some people say, well, how come that being didn't talk to me? I said, well, because light has no lips and doesn't speak English. That's my answer, right?
Yeah, okay.
So, but I don't know. It was just there, right?
So like the message dropped into you, like you just kind of knew it from looking at this being.
Yeah, it dropped into me or came up in me. I don't know. It's like, but it was a clear message. I am come not to judge, but to love. I am come not to judge, but to love.
Whoa.
Do you know a more succinct summary of Christ's message?
Beautiful. Wow. Okay, so you got your answer.
But I didn't know. I mean, it wasn't like that obvious to me at that point, right? So I am come not to judge, but to love. So instantly, all of my confusion evaporated. I have never had a question since that day. What was the central message of the master? And I would say Buddha too, and Krishna too, and maybe Socrates even fits into that club. You know, the guys who says, know thyself.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know, Jesus said, kingdom of heaven is within you. Mm-hmm. Seek first the kingdom. How many people who claim to follow him actually do that? And what does it take to put your focus inside into that heaven and to discover what is there? Right? So anyway, I didn't know that at the time, but my confusion was completely gone. I got an answer, and then the question became for me, who was that?
Yeah. And
who was that?
With the light being that was dropped in there and you woke up and you saw this, how did that end? Did they just disappear, or like what happened?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
It didn't walk away. There wasn't a swish. No, it was just there. And I don't know if it was a split second, or I couldn't tell if it was male or female. I couldn't tell if it was old or young. And I could say now, I don't even know if it was outside or inside of me.
Okay.
But it seemed to me at the time that it was outside of me.
Wow.
Okay. And wow. I'm just giving you the honest
totally.
Perception, right?
Yep.
So then the next question is, who was that? And so I started thinking, well, was that Christ? Because I was kind of on a Christ journey. Was that soul? Was that spirit? Or was that my life? Or life? Was that life? So there's also my answer to my biology question. I just saw life, right? And I came to the conclusion that life and soul and spirit and the master are all synonyms. Now, in the dictionary, they're defined a little different some ways. But in actuality, as an essence of something, they're all the same. And then I feasted on this. Oh, I had so much insight because my heartache kind of went away. There was definitely something that had to do with the heartache too, right? Okay. But I didn't figure that one out so much, other than who it was. And then I had insights around it going over months. This was in 1970, August 1970. At this point, I was 28, right? And then with time, I started to realize it started to become more and more of a memory rather than an experience, rather than a live experience. And that bothered me. And I was like, damn it, I want to live in that experience.
Not just be like a memory of something you once had.
I want to live in that experience on a moment-to-moment basis. Again, nobody said I couldn't, right? But what does it take? I don't know. So we lived in Vancouver, and I didn't like Vancouver. I said, Vancouver, I hate Vancouver. There's no life in it. Forgetting the fact that I'm life in the city. Every human being is life in the city, and the trees and the plants. And it's a very green city, right? And the mountains are green. And I somehow missed all that, right? So I moved with my ex and our 4-month-old son. We went to Colorado to one of the rainbow festivals, and we met somebody there who gave us their cabin to live in for the summer at elevation 9,100 feet in Colorado. Beautiful place. And said, all we want you to do, you should probably have some stable place to hang out with your kid, and it's a good idea for your mom. And so you can have it for free, but we want you to make the firewood for the winter because we won't be there to make it. So we moved to this cabin. Beautiful. It was like heaven on earth. Every day the sun would shine in the morning, in the afternoon the clouds would gather, and it'd be thunderstorm, and pour like crazy, and then it would clear up again and everything would sparkle. It was just like amazing.
Yeah.
But I was a week there, and I realized that what I hate in the city is up here with me. It was like, oh shit, it's my attitude. And then it was like, well, how do I dismantle that attitude and replace it with a better one? I have no idea. I have no idea. But it was like, oh my God, it's not Vancouver, it's me. I'm the problem
it
here.
followed you there, yeah.
I'm the problem here. You were like what Ram does say, wherever you are, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and then one day, and I didn't say anything to anybody about any of this stuff. It was like not a topic. It was like my private stuff, right? I can talk about it now, but in those days, no. And one day I was sitting with my ex, and I said to her, I was tapping my chest, that's where the heartache was, and I said, I know there's a perfection within me, and I guess I had experienced that in that one moment, right? I know there's a perfection within me. I was also on LSD, it's within me. I know there's a perfection within me. I know I'm not connected to it. And I need to find someone who can show me a step, because I've been trying to figure out for a few years now, and I'm not getting any closer. I'm learning stuff, but I'm not getting closer to what I'm trying to do. And that was the first time I'd ever admitted to anybody that I had heartache, right? Other than myself. And the next morning, I went out to get firewood for the cabin. We were broke. We had no money. We were just like poncho. I think we had a poncho and the clothes we wore. And I didn't have a job at that time. And so I went to get the firewood because I promised to do it. And when the landlord in his pickup truck turned the keys, the first thing that came on is, this is the last day of Guru Puja, of preparation for Guru Puja, at which 14-year-old perfect master Guru Maharaji will be. So it was like a festival.
Oh, wow.
And that festival was in Colorado, in Montrose, Colorado, about 210 miles from where I was. And when I heard that, and I had perfection on my mind, and they called him perfect master, whatever that means, I got to go see this guy. And so I come home with the wood and do all that. I say to her, I need to go to this place. She started to cry. You're always leaving, and if you leave, don't come back. And, you can't go. And so we went back and forth like for hours, crying. And finally I said to her, I knew I had to go, and I knew she had to be okay with it. It's funny how things occur in you, right?
Yeah.
And so I said to her, look, what I told you last night, can you show me that? And she said, no. And I said, well, as long as it's like that, I need to go where I think I might find it. And if I find it, I can bring it back. And she completely calmed down and says, okay, go. And so I went there, hitchhiked, I ran down the mountain. First hitchhiked. First car stopped, picked me up. They were going there.
No way.
Was a red Volkswagen. They were going there.
Wow. Okay. That's a good sign.
Yeah, things happen.
Yeah.
And I was there for 2 days, and he probably talked for 2 hours. I remember one sentence, word for word. He said, the peace you search for in the world is within you, and I can reveal you that peace. And then it's like, wait, you're 14, I'm 30, I've been around. What's a 14-year-old going to teach me? Right? But then I thought about it and I said, well, peace. I'm really interested in peace. I'm obsessed with peace. I was in the peace movement until I realized it was an anti-war movement. So I wanted real peace. I didn't want something called peace. I wanted to know what peace is. And so I'm going to check him out. If he can show me, I wouldn't want to miss it. If he can't show me, I'll just keep looking. And so then I was shown a method. He called it self-knowledge. The knowledge of how to bring your focus inside because the focus that's always going out everywhere, how to bring your focus inside. And then I thought the method was too simple. But before I was shown the method, he made people promise that they would give it a fair chance. But he didn't spell out what a fair chance was. So I said, okay, well, I'll try it for 6 months because I said I would. And if I notice a difference, I'll keep doing it. If I don't notice a difference, I'll keep looking. So everything was very iffy. And then my ex and I, living in this idyllic place in heaven on earth, we were always at each other. And it literally started, she'd be up in the kitchen. I'd come out into the kitchen room. I would just say one sentence. She would immediately take the opposite view, and then we'd get into it. And we'd get into it so intensely. I was insecure. I wanted her to agree with me. That was part of it, right? But it would get so intense that I'd get to a point where it's like, I'm either going to belt her or I need to leave the house. So I would leave the house, sit down on a dead log, do the practice that the kid had taught me for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. He suggested an hour, but I couldn't sit still that long. Oh my God, in those days?
Yeah.
I was always all over the place and my thoughts were all over the map, right? So I would do 5 or 10 minutes of the practice.
And the practice being just bringing your attention into the inner space?
Yeah, there's 4 techniques, and he says don't tell people why, because there's a preparation so it's put in context. So if you give somebody the techniques, they'll mess around with them for 3 days. They say, okay, done that. Next.
Didn't work. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it didn't work, or I'm an expert on the techniques, But so he said, don't show it, but let them come when they're ready. If they want, if that's an important trip to them, like it became for me, then let them go through the process, put it in context, and have a better chance of it actually working for them, right? And he didn't charge, no charge, right? So I did 5 or 10 minutes, and I'd look at what we argued about. We argued about that. That's so trivial. That's as trivial as the thing I listened to when I was 6 years old in Germany, and said, yeah, there must be a way to be in it. This is trivial. What? This is just as trivial. And I realized that if I did the practice before we got into the argument, I wouldn't rise to the bait. And by 6 months in, I realized this actually works, because I just felt a little more content, a little more secure, a little more calm, a little more okay, right? And so I said, okay, that was 53 years ago. I still practice every day.
Amazing. Wow.
And why is that? And then out of that has come, you want to get to know yourself. What's a human being? It was one of my big questions. What is a human being? Who am I? It's like another way to say it, right? Why am I here? Where did I come from? What am I good for? Where am I going when I die? All of that stuff, right? Questions of existence, right? I just, what's your goal in life? I just want to be a complete, fully present human being, be present in all of my existence, whatever that is. Well, how are you going to get to know yourself? That's why he calls it self-knowledge, maybe, right? But how are you going to get to know yourself if you're always in your head, or if you're always looking at the girl next door, or if you're always practicing your technology, your skill? If you want to get to know yourself, shouldn't you actually spend time with yourself? Because you get to know things by observation. So if you can sit down and be still and just be present, and try to be present to the energy maybe, or the awareness maybe, in the space that your body occupies, what are you going to find and what are you going to experience? And that's what started then. Now, out of that has come, it turns out that we've been here for, rumor has it, 200,000 years, human beings on the planet. Do you know that no one in all that time in the material world, let's say, in the world of experts, in the world of technology and expertise and studies and looking at almost everything except ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We have never come up with a teachable field of human nature based on observation of what it is to be a human being. But the people who came closest to that all throughout history were the Socrates. That's why he said, know thyself. He didn't say, know everything but thyself. That's what we know, right? He said, know thyself. Or he said, the kingdom of heaven is within you, seek first the kingdom, right? And they all had some kind of a stillness practice in which they tried to be aware, not asleep, because, you're asleep in stillness too, right? But where you're aware and you're awake and you're alert and you feel what it feels like to be alive. And then you get to when you do that and you go deep enough, then you say, oh, that's what the masters talked about. Oh, and when he says, what you have done to one of the least of these, that you have done to me, that's because I'm in everyone. That's because life and Christ and spirit and soul are synonyms, that every child is born a Christ child or Buddha child or spirit child or solar energy gadget child, right? Every human being has that essence within them and can, by going within, bringing their focus in, being aware and bringing the focus of awareness to the core of their being, or to the energy that is life, that is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient in their body, right? They can all experience that. And then the second thing that I'm doing with that, so I'm actually building a teachable field of health. It's almost like updating scriptures.
Oh,
almost.
Really? This is what you're doing right now?
Almost, yeah. And the second thing is, in those 200,000 years, we have never created a teachable field of health based in nature and human nature. Where else would health come from? Right? The food comes from outside, the sunshine comes from outside, the water comes from outside, the oxygen comes from outside, right? So you have to look at all of the aspects of your nature and live in alignment with those, and of nature and live in alignment with those. And then you can look at 10 different parts. So there's awareness, life energy, inspired purpose, that's the positive mind, body, food and fitness, protective mind, that's safety and security, habitual mind, that's all the mental garbage we carry around, that is culture and religion and all kinds of stuff that really never worked, some of it, and some of it worked at some point but doesn't work anymore, right? Because it's all just head trips. Right? And things change and times change, so the head trips need to change, right? So I call that habitual mind. And then outside of that, social group, right? Because we have social group affects health. And then natural environment, that affects health. And then the big picture, and finding it acceptable, being cool with the fact that your body is a temporary terminal condition in an infinite universe. And to be okay with that, right? That one day the body will go, and be okay with that. Because there are things in your nature that will not go. Because in fact, like if I say to you, Graham, whose body is that? What would you tell me?
This is the body I've been blessed with. That's what I would say. Okay.
Would you say it's your body?
I have temporary control over it. Yes.
Okay. So most people, if you ask them, they say, yeah, this is my body.
Yeah.
You know what? But you know what that means? What you've just said, if you said, this is my body, that you're not the body. You're the
right,
owner.
because who are you that's saying, yeah.
Yeah, you're the owner.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're even saying my body means this body is my possession.
Yeah.
I own this body. I am not the body. I'm the owner. Who are you as owner of the body?
Yeah, that's the witness. That's the observer.
Who owns, well, there are two things. One is life is the owner, and life is that energy, that Christ, Son, life, soul, spirit energy. Right? And then the witness is the awareness behind that has no content at all, but witnesses everything. And when you go into deep meditation, you end up being the witness and you see the light. You end up being the witness, seeing the light in your body, feeling the love in your body, hearing the sound in your body. So the witness is like, I would say witness is God, life is Christ, and inspired purpose is Holy Spirit.
So would this be kind of similar to the Trinity, the Holy Trinity kind of idea?
That's what I'm talking about.
The three in the one? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so, given that I started as a little kid saying, I want to know what he felt. No, I want to know what is a human being. And then I want to know what he felt, because that would be a model. And I'd like to be like that model. Right? I don't want to be him. I don't want a religion named after me. I want 8 billion people to experience that for themselves. Now, if I had my druthers, that's what I would be doing. And imagine if you felt that peace. The witness, by the way, is also peace. Awareness is peace. There's no content. It's indestructible, not affected by anything that goes on. Neither is the energy, right? If people had access to that and took the time, an hour a day, let's say, to tap into that, what would they feel? Because they would be content. They have their peace, and then they can live in a world of change and enjoy the changes because we're not in control of those changes. But where we mess up is we're not in touch with ourselves. So then we want the world not to change, and that ain't going to happen. And then we get upset, right? So if we had 8 billion people who had that foundation because they actually were present in their own space, what kind of world do you think we would build?
Completely different. It would change all of our motivational structures, everything.
Do you think that might be a way that human beings can live in harmony?
I think so.
Yeah.
It would have to be. It would have to be, because if you had that place of within yourself, that peace and that awareness and that witness, then what would
then you
be?
can help. Then there's nothing left to do but help.
Yeah.
And then so you help where you can, and where you can't help, you don't help. You know, if you can't help, you can't. I can't do anything for somebody who's living in Japan right now, right? But yeah, I talked to some German tourists in German because that was my first language, right? And I talked a little bit about this story of how do we build a world where people take the time and get to experience the gift that each one of them was given only for themselves. You know, because I can enjoy that gift that I have of life, of witness, whatever you said, right? You can experience it for yourself, but I can't experience your gift and you can't experience mine. So it's a gift that you were given to enjoy. And if you don't enjoy it, it's a wasted gift because nobody else can enjoy it for you.
Yes. Because no one else can enjoy it for you. Yes.
Yeah. And so then it's like, and when people say, well, don't spend time with yourself, that's selfish. No, it's not. And then when you do that, you feel so cared for that it's not about you walking around looking for, how can I make, what do I have to do? What do I need to do to get myself taken care of? Because I don't feel taken care of. But I only don't feel taken care of because I don't feel where the care for me is. Because I am taken care of through all my drama and all my traumas and all my war experiences and all my kickouts from the Christian group and all the stuff that I've been through. Something took perfect care of me the whole time, 24/7, day and night. Even if I say, I hate my life loves me unconditionally, right? So you think about it, all the drama and all the trauma. And the whole, the cure of trauma, taking off from one of your previous guests, right? The cure for trauma is not to dwell in trauma. You know, I bitched about the war. That was my trauma, right? I bitched for 26 years. Until one day I realized, oh my God, through all that stuff, something took perfect care of me. And I've never given that any acknowledgement, a moment's notice, ever said thank you. And that was part of my turnaround. Oh my God, maybe, you know, it's been really good to me. Maybe I'd like to get to know it a little better. Maybe I'd like to get a little closer to it. And that's okay, of course. That's, again, about coming inside.
Udo, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I knew it was going to be a brilliant one. I knew we'd get along after doing my research on you and hearing you speak before. This has been so fantastic just to have fun and ride this wave with you and just explore your life and what means, the lessons that you've learned and what it means to you. I have a couple of questions for you that I prepared that I wanted to ask you, but this has been fantastic. So I've just been like, you know what, just keep going.
Go ahead.
But I do want to ask you a couple of questions that I think are important, that are interesting. Just kind of rolling back to the very beginning here, we were talking about the product that you have, the Udo's oil. A lot of people, and I think this is important because I think a lot of people have heard of the dangers of seed oils. This is a big thing right now, you know, run away from seed oils and the highly processed and the
seed oils and omega-6s, yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to cover that really quickly, and also canola oil, because canola oil's, you know, one of those things that's in everything now, highly processed from Canada, product of Canada. So I wanted to cover that. And then I have some really fun questions to ask you at the end too. But I wanted to cover that because I want to make sure that the audience gets that information.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing about human nature and total health is what I'm working on now. The oil blend we made, because I became omega-6 deficient on flax oil. Flax oil was my first oil made with health in mind. There have always been books. I've been doing it for over 40 years, working with oils. There have always been books that say, don't use oils, bad, bad, bad. And right now, there's a whole bunch of them. And a lot of people are saying, don't use seed oils, don't use omega-6s, because they're toxic. Mm-hmm. Not one of the people who wrote any of those books has ever talked to me. And I've been out there making oils with health in mind, the only one who's been making oils with health in mind. I've been doing that since we started flax oil in 1986. So we're in 96, 6, 16, so almost 40 years. Next year, 40 years, right? And so none of them have ever talked to me. And how I got there was I read a study that said omega-6 is an essential nutrient. An essential nutrient, there are 42 of them. Minerals, vitamins, amino acids, fatty acids. And it's essential means you can't make it from anything else in your body, but you have to have it to live and be healthy, so it has to be brought in from outside, food or supplement, right? 2, if you don't get enough of any essential nutrient long enough, you die. That's how important they are. They are like, there are nutrients that are not essential that have functions in the body, but they're nutrients that are essential, and you die if you don't get enough for long enough, okay? So omega-6 is essential, so you die if you don't get enough long enough. And the third part is if your health is deteriorating because you're not getting enough of an essential nutrient, but before you die, you bring enough back into the diet, then all the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed. Because life knows how to fix your body if you give it the building blocks it needs.
Got it.
Omega-6 is one of those building blocks. And the very next study I read said omega-6 gives you cancer and kills you. And it's like one of those God questions, right? God loves you unconditionally, but you look at him and he kills you. Right? It's the same.
Yeah, right. There's a paradox here.
And I don't do well with those kind of those paradoxes, right? So I said, well, either somebody's lying, and one of these is true, or both of these are true, but there's something else going on that I'm missing.
Yeah.
And I went that route. And so I discovered how oils are made. And when oils are made, we did talk about it, right? They're treated with sodium hydroxide, phosphoric acid, very corrosive base, very corrosive acid, then bleached, which turns them rancid, and then heated to frying temperature for about half an hour to deodorize them, to get the bad smell out. Okay? In that process, 0.5 to 1% of the molecules are damaged. And if it's 1% damaged, a tablespoon will get you those 60 quintillion damaged molecules I talked about. So what these people have done, they haven't gotten the contradiction. They didn't go and look behind what's going on. They haven't done all their homework. And they like to use things to scare people, and then they sell some other stuff behind it. Okay? So these guys, all of them, all of them, and they are like very high profile people, none of them has done their homework. When the oils are made with health in mind, they are required for health. The ratio has to be right because they can crowd each other out. The usual diet has maybe 10 to 20 times more omega-6 than omega-3. Mm-hmm. That's a really bad ratio because it crowds out the omega-3s. Flax oil can crowd out the omega-6s, so you don't want to do flax oil by itself. So we made a blend that deals with the ratio, all organic, in glass, no plastic, no pesticides, right ratio, both essential fatty acids, in the ratio that works most effectively for health. And we've given it to athletes, and in 30 days of taking a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, in 30 days of doing that and doing their sport to exhaustion, their performance goes up by 40 to 60% on average. Whoa. There's no training program that works that well. And that's because the omega-3s are exceptionally good for energy production and for recovery and for oxygen metabolism, right? And 99% of the population doesn't get enough for optimum health. So there are two issues. The ratio's wrong, they're damaged, and then they got pesticides and plastics, and we use them for frying. The oils blend that we make, Udo's oil, you do not use it for frying. In fact, I tell people, you got a frying pan, everybody does, go get it, turn it upside down, whack yourself upside the head with it, and throw that stupid thing out, because it is the dumbest thing. It is the most damaging thing that we have ever invented to do with our food.
So the concern around seed oils really stems from the processing and the pesticides and all the stuff that goes into them, and then we heat them, and all those what do you call them? Those damaged particles that go into our bodies and cause us all these problems. And you're saying, look, we start with organic seeds, and you don't heat them, you don't damage them with all this processing, and you put them in the right proportions, and then your body can actually use them, and your body needs them, they're essential, and then all these problems start organizing and healing themselves because your body wants to heal itself.
Yep.
Okay,
That's what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is the mistake that every one of those people has made that haven't done their homework, the part of the homework that I did after finding out that they give you cancer and kill you, right? They're blaming the damage done or the ratio problem or the pesticides. They're blaming the oil for what should be blamed on the damage done, the pesticides and the wrong ratio. So they're putting the blame in the wrong place.
Got it. Thank you. And I really wanted to clear that up because I think that's important. In canola oil, I'm sure you look at ingredients and products, it's everywhere. Vegetable oil, canola oil, it's everywhere. It's in everything.
Yeah, canola and soy are the biggest oils. They all have the same problem. Treated with sodium hydroxide, phosphoric acid, bleached, then heated to frying temperature. And by the way, if it's 1% in an oil, 1% damage, the more omega-3, the faster the damage will go up because omega-3 is 5 times more sensitive. Canola oil and soybean oil both have omega-3s in them. So they're even more sensitive to damage than oils that have no omega-3s in them. And a hard fat like butter or tallow, they're pretty stable because they don't have double bonds in them, but they're also bad sources of essential fatty acids. And the essential fatty acids are the only thing in fats that you absolutely have to have.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Udo, for this.
From fats.
I really appreciate your insight and all the work that you've done in your life to make this product and bring it to people and educate them as well. I really, really appreciate it. I learned about your product years ago at a Tony Robbins conference. They were all about it in sharing it with people. I said, okay, I'm going to try it. So
he was my best promoter.
Yeah.
He was a better promoter of the oil than I was.
It was great. And I would steam broccoli and I'd put it on my broccoli in the morning for breakfast. That was the way I really like to enjoy it.
But the other thing that I might add that's newer for me is when you take oils, you're taking them out of the rest of what they come in usually, right? Because they come out of whole foods. I find it really helpful to use spices. And my particularly favorite spices, cayenne and
ginger,
turmeric, black seed, clove, amla.
Oh, wow.
You know, some of these spices, they're worldwide well known to be anti-cancer, anti-oxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-cardio, anti-diabetes. And I use them very liberally. And what I do is I actually get tahini. I throw out the tahini oil, put my oil in because it's a better oil, and then put a whole bunch of spices in and mix it all up. And that becomes my dip for my veggies. I eat a lot of raw food.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah,
and it's unbelievably yummy. And I'm 83. I got pretty good energy for an old guy. Yeah.
I would love. Go ahead.
Yeah, and people usually think I'm about 70 or so.
Yeah, 83 years young. I love it. Udo, thank you so much. I have one last question for you. And then I would love to, and we have an after party for those members of timehascome.com where we're going to have Udo back and we're going to get your chance to answer your questions and hopefully get some more recipes from him and how he uses the Udo oil. But my last question for you, Udo, is a favorite question of mine that I like to ask all my podcast guests. And it's one that I came up with while I was on set filming a TV show and we were waiting for the lights and the cameras to be set up. And this question popped into my mind and I started asking people and their answers were very unique. And I just thought, wow, this is really interesting. So the question goes like this. Udo, if you had on your wall a magic painting and anytime you looked at this magic painting, you could feel any feeling you wanted to feel to any degree that you wanted to feel that feeling, what feeling would you choose and what would be on your painting to represent that?
Okay, so, first of all, the feeling would be peace. Because it's part of the core of, it's the universal essence of a human being. It's a universal because everything comes out of peace. Peace is everywhere. There's more peace in this universe than anything else. That's interesting. More than hydrogen, more than helium, more than things. It's like space, only more than space. Okay, so peace as the universal essence. Love, unconditional empowering, a flow of unconditional empowering love as the individual essence of human being. And then the shine of that into the world as inspired purpose. So, in order to get those, I would eat the painting. Because if eating the painting doesn't get me that, then I'll go to what gets me that, which is inside.
I've never had anyone say they eat their painting before. I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so in the painting, do you have an image or is there colors or anything that comes to mind that you feel would be kind of closely represent that feeling of peace? And I think
I have an image. It's a bullseye.
Okay.
With peace at the center, surrounded by love, surrounded by shine, surrounded by body, surrounded by protection, surrounded by social groups, surrounded by natural environment, surrounded by infinity.
Wow.
Right? So I'm literally looking at human being instead of doing arms and legs. I'm doing the human being in its nature. Now the peace, of course, is everywhere, but the access is in the core. Right? Because if you look around, you say, I don't see any peace. It's because peace in you is not doing the looking. But when peace looks at the world, it sees peace. When love looks at the world, it sees love. When energy looks at the world, it sees energy. When anger looks at the world, it sees enemies. right? When fear looks at the world, it sees danger. So your state of being defines your perception. If you want peace in the world, if you want to see it, it's peace in you that needs to be looking. And if you want peace in the world, if there's peace that fills you, you recognize that peace is a center point in you, but also in everybody else and also every other point in space. And it goes from there out to infinity. It's not limited to limited to the dimensions of your body. The love is kind of, it shines out too, but it's more limited to you. It still shines out, so it's not limited to your body because it shines out as inspiration, right? But the peace, it's just one thing. It fills the entire universe. You know, the war in Ukraine, let's say, is taking place in perfect peace. There's peace on the battlefield. There's peace in the warriors, the peace between them, around them, above them, below them. And if they were focused on their access to peace within them, they would put down their weapons. They would say to each other, what the are we doing? How can we work together to make life better for us and take care of our children and stop being the stupid example that we are for how to live? Right? But that's not what they're doing. Their focus is, you're my enemy, I'm going to kill you. For whatever the reason gets strung along with that. And the other side says, you're my enemy, I'm going to kill you. For whatever they string along with that, right? And I kind of don't take sides between them because, you know, in the war that I went through, the communists were on one end and the allies were doing the same thing on the other. So when it comes to war, I like to be on the side of life. Oh, yeah, that's right. Your enemy's alive too. Oh, yeah, he worries about his kids too. Oh, yeah, how did he become an enemy? Oh, yeah, I defined him like that in my mind.
Exactly.
Or somebody told me I should.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Why would you listen to somebody who wants you to do that? Why wouldn't you listen to somebody who said, I am within all of you, you know, and if you want the more abundant life, then know the kingdom is within you and seek first the kingdom. And then everything else will fall into place, right?
It's beautiful.
It's like, holy smokes. And why aren't we doing that? I don't know. Maybe we need a war to get us thinking about it. And if that's so, then we'll get that war. You can get to peace either through wisdom or through pain. Wisdom is better.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if you do it through pain, you'll forget when the pain is gone. To be inspired to peace is like, oh my God, 8 billion people. Oh my God. That's so for me, that'll be mankind's greatest achievement.
I love that, Udo.
To actually not create peace, but to live in the peace that has been made available everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. Reconnect with that, remember it, and reunite and come from that place. Look at the world from that peaceful place.
And feel it and bring it to expression.
Yeah.
And we could all the time we spend banging each other, we could be helping each other.
I love that. Udo Erasmus, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom and insights and love and peace with all our listeners. And your insights, your latest book, Your Body Needs an Oil Change, is available now. The links and stuff will be below, websites and whatnot. Is there anything else you want to leave people with, or a last message, or as we wrap up here?
No, the message is always, if you spend the time with your focus, quietly, in stillness, with your focus in the space your body occupies, you will discover that you have always been unconditionally loved, that you're magnificent and awesome by nature, even if you have a wart on your nose and there's a hair on the wart. Awesome. To speak of, what is this? This is like amazing. Live in that awe, because, and it's like everything. And you look around, it's like, God, everything's amazing. Wow, how did I get here? How did I luck out like this? Well, I'm just dust, water, air. and a little sunlight. That's it, right? All mixed together to make this. Wow. You know, dust can't have the human experience, and water can't, and air can't, and sun can't. But mixed all together by a force that knows how to do that and has been doing it for a very long time, right? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Gets you the human experience to dance and sing and laugh and cry and sleep and poo, you know, and eat.
Yeah.
You know, it's all, and all of it's divine. All of it is divine. You know, what's called divine by religious people. All of it is energy, all of it is feeling, all of it is experience. Wow.
I love that. Thank you so much, Udo. I appreciate you being here. And for everybody watching, members of timehascome.com, we'll see you at the after party. Thank you again, Udo, and all the best to you guys.
And I love what you're doing because the time has come. The time really has come.
Amen.
You know, and it's so much is possible.
Thank you, Udo.
So much.
Thank you. All right. Until
Thank
next
you.
time. Cheers, guys.
Well, that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, for listening to this episode all the way to the end. If you got outside and got some fresh air like me, maybe some sunshine, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed that clean, crisp air and a little bit of vitamin D. Thank you to Udo Erasmus for being on the show and sharing your stories, your insights, and your beautiful perspective of peace that surrounds us all. Now, if you had a question for Udo, or myself for that matter, and you wanted to ask it, that's why we have our podcast after party. So head on over to timehascome.com. We do this after party where we extend the conversation. You get a chance to ask a question, and we have a good time. I'm sure Udo has many more stories to share, so I'm looking forward to it, and I hope to see you there. Now, I want to say a special thank you to all the members of timehascome.com and the Sovereign Creators, because you make it possible for me to do this, and I am so, so grateful that I get to do what I love. So thank you for supporting me, for being a part of the network, and supporting this podcast. All the best to you guys, and watch out for those scammers because they're everywhere. I always have to say that because I'm hoping there's at least one person that can hear that message and be like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not talking to Graham. Maybe this is a scammer. Just always assume it's a scammer, okay? There's so many out there right now. Please be aware, please be careful, and I'll see you for the next podcast episode or the after party.